I've seen a lot in response to disasters. That's kind of how I'm involved. I haven't been directly affected, as in not my property or anything. I've had a couple of scary situations, emergencies, but not disasters. But I've been involved with floods, fires, massive hailstorms, even a flash flood event that was like a tsunami. We went out immediately after that one to help people and see how they were going, even before we were told to go, because we knew people needed help. And we have a lot of support too. We talk to each other, we debrief after every event, and if we need further assistance, we've got people to call. Sometimes it's not the disaster event or the response that affects you the most either. It can be what happens after. So a big thing for me was I lost my friends. They didn't get killed, but it was so bad for some of them that I couldn't go back after the floods. One friend, she found it hard even to drive through the area, because she remembers that night. Her and her husband were huddled together, cut off on the roof of their house thinking, this is it. We're gonna die here. Luckily, they ended up getting out of there. The SES came and got them, and they were able to stay with friends for a while. But in the end, she just went, nah, that's it. You know, they'd been through too much, and he'd had a car accident, she'd lost her father, then this flood happened. So she lives in the city now, and I haven't seen her since. That was a big thing for me. Another time, we weren't affected, but we had to leave our property, and my son was actually a bit, I don't know if the word's traumatized. It probably is trauma. But he was pretty upset because we left, and we went up the mountain and we stayed there for a week because it was a really weird situation. You know, just leaving your home, not knowing what to take and not knowing what you were coming back to. We were okay, but then both me and his dad were volunteers and responders, so he was worried about us getting killed. He didn't want us out there without him. It's hard to understand or have it explained to you when you're young and dealing with this strange situation, but these response organizations, they really make sure you're safe before you go out or even get started as a volunteer. You know, a lot of people want to be heroes, a lot of volunteers, but they run you through interviews to make you think about that and the situations you'll go into. They train you. And then it's different depending on where the disaster is that you're responding to. You know, if there's Townsville floods, for example, it's not your local area, so it's a different community and other factors might stand out for you. So if it's stinking hot with mosquitoes, high humidity, mud, before you go out you might be asked, have you got a health condition? Do you want to go? Then with local emergency service volunteers, they live there. They live it, breathe it, and they're in the community they know. And that really, really affects them personally. More so than someone that's flying in than flying out, so to speak. But there's a lot you need to understand. Sometimes there's also friction with locals, and it can even be in your own community. I remember that happened one time. After one disaster and when we were planning for more, we'd had training and been told that the community had been giving some people a hard time, because sometimes they blame you. And we thought about going out there for some community engagement events, but then it didn't come about. Everyone's busy, all that sort of stuff. So I basically said to them, look, if you think it's too big for you to handle out there because of the friction, I really think you need to get some people in here from Sydney or somewhere. And then the next time there was an emergency, they had people come in who are high up in community engagement roles, and they had more training to deal with that friction and support those people. They didn't send us local volunteers, and in that situation, it was good. But most of the time, I think the local community appreciates us, because we're often the first ones there. You're very much reliant on just the locals coming together and helping people, you know? It's just the way it works out here. It can take longer for the local state or federal government to turn up here, so we just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, you know? It comes eventually, but it can take a long time. Probably the quickest people out here are the volunteer services. The RFS, SES, the police and the AMBOs and all those sorts of people. And of course, people want power back on after a disaster, and the energy company's out really quickly fixing power poles and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that broader scale government thing, it takes a long time to get up and running, you know? So through all the dramas we've had out here, flood, fire, COVID, and even Vermont and stuff like that, It's certainly pulled this community together a lot, and we'll always turn up for each other.